A rusted tractor rattled through the front gate of one of the wealthiest ranch communities in the state, and within minutes, a billionaire CEO laughed so loudly that every worker nearby turned to look. Before the sun reached its highest point, that same laughter would disappear forever, replaced by stunned silence when property records, old promises, and a lifetime of hidden sacrifice revealed that the quiet single father everyone dismissed actually owned the neighboring $120 million ranch they had spent years admiring from a distance. If you believe kindness always matters more than appearances, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to our channel so you can continue sharing these emotional journeys with our community. Every morning, before the dew had completely disappeared from the grass, Colton Hayes climbed onto the same faded green tractor he had driven for nearly 20 years. The paint had long surrendered to rust, the seat had been repaired more times than anyone could count, and the engine always complained before finally settling into a steady rhythm. To strangers, it looked like a machine ready for a scrapyard. To Colton, it was the machine that had carried him through grief, poverty, and every difficult season after losing his wife, Eleanor, to a sudden illness 9 years earlier. Since then, every sunrise had belonged to work and every afternoon belonged to raising his 12-year-old daughter, Nora, who had become the quiet strength that kept his heart moving even when life tried to stop it. Colton never dressed to impress anyone. His boots were worn smooth by years of honest labor. His denim shirt had been patched by his own careful hands. His truck was almost as old as the tractor. Most people who saw him assumed he barely survived from one harvest to the next. Few bothered asking questions because appearances always seemed easier than truth. Just beyond the old wooden fence stood the magnificent Blackstone Ridge Ranch, a breathtaking estate with endless green fields, championship horse facilities, elegant barns, private lakes, and luxury guest lodges. Newspapers regularly described it as one of the finest ranches in the country, worth nearly $120 million. Recently, it had been purchased by ambitious CEO Meredith Caldwell, whose technology company had made her one of the youngest billionaires in America. She saw the ranch not as a home but as another trophy proving her success. Meredith believed excellence could be measured by numbers, polished appearances, and expensive machinery. She admired perfection and quietly judged anything that failed to match it. The old neighboring tractor offended her sense of image every time it crawled along the fence line. One warm afternoon, she arrived with investors and business partners for a grand tour of her new property. Luxury vehicles lined the entrance while photographers captured every smiling handshake. As the visitors admired the estate, Colton slowly guided his aging tractor along his own pasture, completely focused on repairing a damaged irrigation channel. Meredith glanced toward him with an amused smile that quickly became open laughter. She remarked loudly enough for everyone nearby to hear that some people refused to let go of the past and suggested the old tractor looked older than its owner. Several guests chuckled politely. Others simply looked uncomfortable. Colton heard every word but never looked up. Instead, he continued repairing the field exactly as he had planned. Nora, helping nearby with a bucket of tools, lowered her head. She had grown accustomed to seeing people underestimate her father, but it still hurt every single time. She wanted to defend him, yet she remembered something her mother used to say before she passed away. Character always speaks louder than pride. She silently returned to helping her father. Across the fence, one elderly ranch hand named Walter watched everything unfold. Walter had worked these lands for more than 40 years. Unlike the visitors, he knew stories that money could never purchase. He quietly shook his head but said nothing. Days passed, and Meredith became increasingly frustrated with the neighboring property. She believed Colton's old equipment ruined the luxurious image she planned to advertise. Her legal advisor suggested she offer to purchase the smaller ranch and remove the outdated buildings. Confident she could solve the matter quickly, Meredith instructed her office to arrange a meeting. She expected an eager owner desperate for financial relief. When the appointment arrived, Colton appeared exactly as he always did, wearing dusty boots and carrying a weathered folder instead of an expensive briefcase. Meredith assumed negotiations would be simple. She presented what she considered a generous offer, explaining that selling would give his daughter a better future while allowing him to retire comfortably. In her mind, she was doing him a favor. Colton listened respectfully until she finished. Then he gently thanked her for the offer and quietly declined. Meredith blinked in disbelief. She doubled the amount. Colton declined again. She increased it once more. His answer remained unchanged. Her patience disappeared. She questioned why anyone would cling to an aging ranch with outdated equipment when they could walk away wealthy. Colton simply smiled and wished her a pleasant afternoon before leaving. Meredith interpreted his calmness as stubborn pride. Walter, however, understood something she did not. The following weekend brought the annual Regional Ranch Conservation Gathering. Local officials, historians, agricultural leaders, and landowners gathered beneath bright blue skies to celebrate decades of responsible land stewardship. Meredith attended, expecting recognition as the area's newest prominent ranch owner. Instead, she noticed everyone greeting Colton with remarkable warmth and genuine respect. State agriculture directors shook his hand, veterans embraced him, longtime ranchers thanked him for preserving open land that countless developers had tried to buy, young farmers asked him for advice. Meredith couldn't understand why a man driving a rusted tractor received more admiration than executives arriving in luxury vehicles. During the ceremony, the master of events invited Colton to the stage. The audience rose in a standing ovation. Confused whispers spread among Meredith's guests. The speaker began sharing a remarkable history few outsiders knew. Years earlier, when developers planned to divide thousands of acres into luxury subdivisions, Colton had quietly purchased surrounding parcels through a family trust established by his late grandfather. Rather than seeking publicity, he spent decades protecting farmland, wildlife habitats, and neighboring family ranches from being destroyed. Every dollar earned through careful investments had gone back into preserving the land. The audience learned that Colton personally owned not only his modest farmhouse but also the enormous neighboring ranch Meredith had recently purchased. She had bought only the luxury operating lease and business assets after a previous management company collapsed. The land beneath it had always remained under Colton's family ownership through a carefully protected agreement that few people outside county records fully understood. Gasps echoed across the gathering. Meredith felt the ground beneath her confidence disappear. The elegant ranch she believed symbolized her success had actually existed because a humble single father had spent decades protecting it. The speaker continued explaining that Colton intentionally lived modestly because nearly every profit from the ranch funded scholarships for children of struggling farming families, emergency medical assistance, and conservation projects across the county. He never attached his name to donations because he believed generosity lost its meaning when it demanded applause. Meredith suddenly remembered every joke she had made about the tractor, every assumption, every dismissive glance. For the first time in years, success felt strangely empty. That afternoon, she quietly drove past Colton's property once more. She noticed details she had ignored before. The fences were perfectly maintained. The livestock looked healthy. Wildflowers filled protected meadows. Children from neighboring farms were learning to repair equipment under Colton's patient guidance while Nora laughed beside them. Nothing about the place reflected poverty. It reflected purpose. Walter approached Meredith and gently explained the truth behind the old tractor. Eleanor had purchased it together with Colton during their first year of marriage. They had promised each other they would never replace it as long as it could still work because it represented the life they built from absolutely nothing. After Eleanor passed away, Colton kept that promise every single day. The tractor was not a symbol of failure. It was a promise still being honored. Meredith sat silently for several minutes, overwhelmed by regret. The following morning, under bright sunshine, she returned alone. This time she carried no photographers, no lawyers, and no investors. She simply asked if she could help repair a damaged fence along the shared property line. Colton welcomed her without hesitation. For hours they worked side by side beneath the warm afternoon sun. Meredith discovered how peaceful honest labor could feel when nobody cared about titles. She watched Colton patiently teach Nora how to measure fence posts, reminding her that every strong structure begins with a solid foundation. People rarely notice. Those words settled deeply inside Meredith's heart because they described people as much as fences. Over the following weeks, she canceled expensive image campaigns and redirected millions toward agricultural education, rural healthcare, and conservation partnerships inspired by Colton's example. Employees inside her company noticed changes as well. She began listening before speaking. She visited workshops instead of only boardrooms. She rewarded quiet dedication rather than loud self-promotion. The transformation was gradual but genuine. One afternoon, the company held its annual leadership celebration at the ranch. Instead of giving the keynote speech herself, Meredith invited Colton to speak about integrity. He never mentioned wealth. He never mentioned ownership. He simply explained that people often confuse value with appearance, even though the strongest hearts usually wear the simplest clothes. He reminded everyone that kindness costs nothing but often returns everything. Many listeners wiped tears from their eyes. As the gathering ended beneath golden afternoon sunlight, Nora climbed onto the old tractor beside her father. The familiar engine sputtered before settling into its comforting rhythm. Meredith watched them drive slowly across the fields, no longer seeing rust or faded paint. She saw years of sacrifice, loyalty, resilience, and love that no amount of money could ever purchase. Before this story comes to its close, we'd love to hear from you. Please leave a meaningful comment and tell us what you believe is more important, a person's appearance or the character they reveal through their actions. Your words may encourage someone who needs that reminder today. Months later, visitors continued admiring the magnificent ranch next door, but those who truly understood its history no longer measured its worth by its price. They measured it by the quiet man who had spent a lifetime protecting it without demanding recognition, by the daughter who learned that dignity never depends on wealth, and by the once proud CEO who discovered that genuine success begins the moment humility replaces judgment. The old tractor continued rolling across the fields every bright morning, carrying not only a hard-working father but also a timeless reminder that the richest people are often the ones who never feel the need to prove they are rich. Meredith never laughed at another person's appearance again, and whenever someone asked her what changed her life, she simply smiled toward the neighboring fields where an old tractor moved steadily beneath the afternoon sun, quietly teaching lessons that no business school ever could. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, leave a meaningful comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss another emotional journey. May we all remember that true greatness is revealed not by what we own, but by how we treat those the world too quickly overlooks.